I never considered myself superstitious. Ghost stories were fun to hear around campfires or during Halloween, but that's where I thought they belonged. Fictional settings meant to give you a quick scare before you moved on. But the things that started happening in my house made me realize that sometimes the things you don't believe in are real. Very real. It started about a year ago, not long after I moved into this old house. I got a great deal on it. It was an old Victorian, creaky but with character, nestled in a quiet neighborhood. I loved the high ceilings, the big windows, and the sense of history it carried. But there was something else that came with it. A presence. The first time I noticed something was off, I was in the kitchen. It was late, maybe around midnight, and I was fixing a snack before bed. The house was silent except for the occasional groan of the wood floors settling. As I closed the refrigerator door, I caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye. A dark figure, standing at the edge of the kitchen, near the hallway. I froze, heart racing, but when I looked directly at it, it was gone. I brushed it off as my imagination. I was tired, and shadows in an old house can play tricks on you. But that was just the beginning. A few nights later, I woke up around 3 a.m. I don't know what stirred me, but I had that feeling, you know? That sensation like you're being watched. My bedroom felt colder than usual, and the air seemed thick, like something was pressing down on me. My eyes adjusted to the darkness, and that's when I saw her. Standing at the foot of my bed, illuminated faintly by the moonlight filtering through the window, was a woman. She was dressed in what looked like an old-fashioned nightgown, her long hair hanging down in tangled strands. Her face was gaunt, eyes hollow, as if the life had been drained from her long ago. I was paralyzed. I couldn't scream, couldn't move, couldn't even breathe. We just stared at each other. She didn't move, but the way she looked at me, it was like she was angry, like she hated me for being in her house. Then, as suddenly as she appeared, she was gone. The room returned to its normal temperature, and I could breathe again. I lay there, staring at the spot where she had stood, terrified but unsure if what I'd seen was real. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. After that, things escalated. It started with small disturbances. Doors that I was sure I had closed would be wide open when I came back into the room. Objects would be moved, nothing major at first, but enough to make me question if I was starting to lose my mind. Then came the whispers. At night, when the house was quiet, I would hear it. Soft, unintelligible whispering. It wasn't like someone was talking directly to me, but rather like the sound was coming from the walls themselves. I'd strain to listen, but I could never make out what was being said, and the more I listened, the more unsettled I felt. It felt wrong, as if the house itself was speaking to me, warning me. One evening, I had a friend over. I hadn't told anyone about what had been happening. I didn't want to sound crazy. We were sitting in the living room, just talking, when suddenly, my friend's face went pale. I followed her gaze to the doorway where the woman was standing again, just watching us. Before I could say anything, she vanished. My friend turned to me, wide-eyed, and said, "Did you see that?" I nodded, my mouth dry. It was the first time someone else had seen her. Things became unbearable after that. Every night she appeared, always at 3 a.m., always watching. The atmosphere in the house changed. It felt oppressive, like the walls were closing in. I started sleeping with all the lights on, but it didn't matter. She still came. And every time, she seemed to get closer to the bed. The worst encounter happened about a month ago. I woke up, as usual, to find her at the foot of my bed. But this time, she wasn't just watching. She was closer, standing right next to me, her hollow eyes fixed on mine. I could see the details of her face now. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, with dark veins running beneath it. Her mouth twisted into a sneer, and that's when I heard it, the whispering. But this time, it was clear. She leaned in, her face inches from mine, and whispered, "Get out!" I jumped out of bed, my heart pounding, and ran out of the house, barefoot and still in my pajamas. I drove around the neighborhood for hours, too afraid to go back. When I finally returned at dawn, the house was eerily still, as if nothing had happened. But I knew it wasn't over. I began researching the house's history, desperate to understand what was happening. I found out that a woman had died there decades ago. Her name was Margaret, and she had lived alone after her husband had mysteriously disappeared. According to the reports, she had gone mad with grief, convinced that he had left her for another woman. She became reclusive, rarely leaving the house until one night she simply vanished. No one ever found her body. I don't know if she's the ghost I've been seeing, but it feels like it. Her presence is tied to the house, her anger palpable. I've tried everything, smudging, priests, even moving out for a few weeks, but nothing works. She's still there, waiting. Now, every night at 3 a.m. I wake up, my heart pounding in my chest, dreading what I'll see. Sometimes she's there, and sometimes she's not. But the feeling of being watched never goes away. The house is colder than it should be, even in the middle of summer. And the whispering. It's constant now. I don't know how much longer I can stay here, but every time I try to leave, something pulls me back. I've had dreams, vivid, terrifying dreams, where she's standing at the door, blocking my way out, whispering in that same chilling voice, "You can't leave. This is my house." And the worst part is, I'm starting to believe her.